Good morning, friends. Thanks for joining us this morning. Welcome to Coffee Talk. Hopefully you've got a coffee in your hand or a hot chocolate, because that's kind of this time of year. And when we're recording this, it's roughly minus 23. So I feel like it's a necessity to have something warm in your hand or something warm on your hands.
Yep.
If you're walking around your house with mittens or socks on your hands, hopefully you get that sorted out.
You know, we had that one winter. On one of the coldest days, furnace died.
Oh, that's right. Wasn't that in the last couple of years? I think I remember.
Yeah.
So you just brought the fireplace inside?
No, we didn't. Yeah, no, that was a quick call. Thankfully, in those days, at least the one I'm thinking of, we still know, a furnace technician, and it was a quick, hey, what are you doing? You busy today? Come help. It was good.
Yeah. So it's Christmas week. We're heading up to Christmas, so we thought we'd festivize a little bit and have some Christmassy sweaters. Hopefully you have a few. You could call them ugly, you could call them Christmassy, you could call them winter, you can call them ski sweaters, whatever you're gonna do. But yeah.
That's what I feel like looking at you. You're sitting in a ski chalet.
Yeah.
That's what I kept trying to figure out what.
Because I think I have to be singing the Juicy Fruit song right now. That's my guitar. Juicy Fruit, it's gonna move you. But instead, we have other stuff going on that I get to sing on Friday night, and we get to celebrate together, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But even just looking back at this last Sunday, we're working our way through the gifts of Christmas, and we were talking about grace this last week, and hopefully it's something that I remember that this is like the foundation. This is the key to Christ coming to earth. It's a large portion of the reason, because this is what we are to be about, grace given to us and grace given to others. And what were some of your reflections coming out of that?
Any thoughts? Want me to go first? Or?
Yeah.
Grace.
Also, it's hard to take you seriously with your blinking. Okay, go.
Be gracious to me, please. Grace. We know it's important. We know it's, like you said, foundational. But just as we talked about it on Sunday, as I researched it the week before, just reminded again how amazing, the song Amazing Grace is so right on, that God, that's his character. His character is to delight in us, to delight through excessive kindness, all these things that are inherent in this word. So we say unmerited favor of God, which is so true, but we say it so much, I feel like it's the unmerited favor of God, instead of thinking about undeserved, excessive kindness, his delight. How could a God, I thought of this after, I was like, it's kind of like we were punching God in the face again and again and again, and he was delighting in us. He chose to delight in us as we were punching him in the face, and then he took it to his death. What an amazing thing that we so easily take for granted. So, I don't know, that's a quick synopsis. Does that bring any ideas?
Well, I think where it's helpful to go, or good to go sometimes, is remembering that how God has treated us is how we are to treat others. And so, as you were talking, what was coming to mind was Jesus' parable, right? About the guy whose huge debt was forgiven and then couldn't forgive, or chose not to forgive a lesser debt of someone else. And
much lesser debt, right?
Right, yeah. And how often that's all of us is that guy. We lose sight of just how much we are forgiven, right? That we come about our day already forgiven, regardless of what goes on, or we might go, oh, I did that, I can't believe I did that, but that even is not compared to everything else we've already been forgiven of. And so we then come into our, interactions with our kids or neighbors or spouse or whoever is in our life, and it's like, how do we then continue to live gracefully? So that what they experience from us is a little taste of the grace we've experienced from our Father. And so, when I think of what it means, the gift of grace at Christmas is only part what we've received. It's also, what do we continue? What are we giving? What is the grace we have for others?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think even just to extend on that, if we truly understood it, if we truly grasped it, if we truly pondered it and recognized it, I think we would be so overwhelmed with it that we couldn't but show grace, right? Like if you really understand something that profound, how can you not be changed by it? So I think that's the challenge too, is to reflect on, like, I think it's both and, like,
Right.
how much I have been shown grace. Wow, like I'm complete. I'm whole. I don't need the approval of that person, or I don't need them to be different because I'm filled up with God so that I can show them. Like that's what Jesus, he was so full of his Father.
Yep.
He was so focused on him and so in love with his Father, and recognizing that was his call and what God, the Father had asked him to do and he had agreed to do, that he, for the joy set before him, like, you know what I mean? So yeah, I agree with you. Like, how do we show it to others? Well, I think we start by really recognizing what we have. And then, yeah, I mean, it will always be a challenge here because we'll never completely understand, but yeah.
Yeah, maybe, but that shouldn't stop us from trying, one, and two, it's entirely possible to be so, I guess, focused on the grace we've received that we actually still miss ways to show grace to others.
Yeah.
And I think that's the dangerous trap we can easily fall into, right? Is okay, it starts with understanding how much grace we've received. But that's not the point, right? If we don't take it to that next step, then we're actually not.
We're not fully grasping it.
Well, we're not fully grasping. We're also not fully, I think, following Jesus either.
Right.
Because he didn't, I mean, now, obviously he didn't need the grace, right? Because of his sinless life. But man, he was always extending grace to people who didn't.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Who didn't deserve it, right?
Totally.
I mean, obviously it was grace, so therefore it carries that connotation.
But you're right. It does require balance, because you can't give what you don't have or you don't understand, right? And if you get into that zone of always thinking of that out there and actually completely forget where you've come from, I think it's actually a very revelation kind of thing. You forgot your first love. You forgot the depth of God's great love that was extended to you, that while I was still a sinner, that Christ died for me. And that's kind of where my mind went too, because because quite often I or others might even feel like we have that sense of I'm just not worthy. I don't understand why Christ died for me, because I'm not worthy of it, and so we have that sense of like the grace feels cheap unless we fully understand it too. So what actually also got me started on that track as well too is a song that I was listening to. It's one of my favorite bands, 10th Avenue North. It's called No Shame, and the chorus goes, "I'm so free, it feels like I'm stealing. I'm so free, I'm not scared of the ceiling. I can look like a fool and enjoy it. I can cry like a man and I own it. It may look like I'm broke, but I'm healing. I'm learning to bring everything that I'm feeling. So forgiven, man, it's hard to explain it. I'm finally living with no shame." Right? And so just that sense of like from an outsider view, to think, okay, the weight of my sin was paid for, and man, I better pay for that to Christ or something. It feels like I'm stealing. It feels like I'm when I receive that free gift, but yet the weight of it is a continual reminder, I have been forgiven so very much. And I think when we are changed by that, then it's easier to give to other people. And that's where I think that balance comes in, because you're right, Chris, I think sometimes we sit here and we stop, right? Or we even feel like, okay, grace only kind of hides within the four walls of the church, and that we don't bring it out, we don't give it to others. And you know, I think of Peter at the gate. You know, the man is saying, you know, can you give me something? And he says, I don't know what, I don't have anything to give you other than the grace that Christ has given to me. Freely I've been given to, and so I freely I give to you. And in the name of Jesus Christ, rise up and walk.
Well, and I think that's what fuels Paul, is just recognizing the grace. I'm the worst of sinners, yet I was shown the grace. And, you know, we hear a lot about burnout. But Paul, man, of all people to burn out, wouldn't it be Paul? But yet I think that was because he kept on recognizing what he had, pouring it out, recognizing what he had, pouring it out. And if we've truly, really grabbed onto what we have, like that's where our fuel comes from. I'm sorry, I've cut you off.
Yeah, well, I know. That's okay, because so as you were talking, Kevin, I think two things come to mind. One, an IKEA commercial, right? With the one with the ladies. There's the one commercial where the lady comes like busting out of the store. Start the car! Start the car! All right, it's advertising like sales so good you'll think you're stealing. And that's that is what it is.
That's a good commercial.
I mean, it's a great one.
That's great.
But I think we've known people that sometimes can easily become paralyzed by their own sense of unworthiness, or you're right, they don't actually I appreciate what they're talking about in that song, because that's not the point either.
Yeah.
That we get stuck in the, you know, my brain then went to Psalm 40, right, where the psalmist talks about being lifted out of the mire, and that's actually the act of it, right? That God doesn't just, you know, point out all the garbage that we're stuck in, but he lifts us out of it. And if we don't recognize that we've left the mire, then we haven't actually received grace either, right? We're still, so there's an act of actually, it's not just, I guess maybe that's the act of receiving it. That we really, it's not just understanding it or recognizing, we actually, to receive it, then we go forward a new creation that Paul talks. We go forward and then in a new path, a new whatever, and we're refusing to stay in the mud. And that's, I think, what then makes it even more possible to show grace to others, because if we're still in the mud, we're not actually going to be able to be gracious to anyone. But we've got to be fully out of it.
It's so interesting because I totally agree with you. And yet, as you're talking, I'm like, this shows why concepts like this are so much bigger than we recognize, and that we can ponder forever. Because we got to get out of it, but yet we have to enter and realize how deep that mud is. The grossness of our lives in order to recognize how great the grace is. So, yes, we have to be lifted out, but we have to contemplate at times the depth of our depravity as well, just to recognize the greatness of the grace too. So it's like, there's I think you're kind of hitting at, there's a balance in all these things. Like, yes, we have to be focused on what we've received, but we can't just hold it. We have to take it out. Yes, we have to be lifted out of the mire, but yet we have to recognize how deep that was, to recognize the greatness, like all these, balances.
Yeah, I just think sometimes we give too much power to the mud when we keep walking back to it.
Well, and that's not recognizing the greatness of
exactly,
grace, right?
Yeah, and that's where I think we have to be careful, not just with our language, but also our attitude about it, because I'm not the person who is stuck in the mud anymore. I'm not.
Yeah.
However, there's always that temptation back, right? There, we have to remember too that there are, there's an evil one who would love to get us back in there, right? But I'm not that person anymore.
Right. Yeah, and that's
Jesus. None of us are. None of us are that person.
And that's a challenge, because we will find ourselves feeling like we're in the mud because we've done something
Yeah.
that we regret or that we shouldn't have, or we know is against God's plan, because we still live in a fallen world. We still have temptation, but then to receive that grace again, instead of feeling like, oh, now I got to show God that I'm not going to stay here, whatever. No, it's up to Him to lift us out every time and all the time, and He's able and He does it, and that's grace, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Huh.
There's more there, and I think there's more to talk about. But I think we want to keep going because this also continues to point us to the great depth of God's love, and this is what we're trying to celebrate through these gifts of Christmas. That this whole season is a season of contemplation and consideration, and hopefully, as you have been walking along with us through this series, that you've been considering and contemplating just the great love of God and all of these amazing gifts that He has given us, and that the greatest gift itself is Christ. And we don't want to give away any spoilers, but that's the whole point, right? And so as we head towards this Friday night at 6:30, we're going to celebrate again with an evening service, and you are more than welcome to come and join and bring guests and bring friends. And I already have some friends that are planning on joining who, it's good to hear, and I'm excited for that. And this Friday at 6:30, we'll be sharing together. And then Saturday, hopefully you've got some nice just hangout plans. And it's going to be not as cold, so that's a good day.
Oh, yeah. I didn't hear you say last minute shopping plans because and I think what's great to remember too is that when we have our focus on Jesus too, right, and realize it's about time with each other, and Christmas isn't just one day.
Yeah,
and Saturday, I think that's part of what is really breaking in this year is that it's a season of celebration when we set it right. Yeah.
Saturday, I think our big plans are board games.
Nice.
So it's going to be a good weekend. And then Sunday morning at 10 a.m., we're going to gather and have a regular service. And hopefully you can join us as well too on that morning. And we will have a bit of a birthday cake for Jesus as well. And so we want to celebrate with you all as well. And if you're here joining us, that's great. If you're with your family, blessings on you. And and then we're kind of out of the office for a couple days, and so next week the office is going to be open for sure Thursday throughout the day. So if you have any last minute things you need to do, or if you just want to come and hang out, come and join us and just tell us about your Christmas and share with us your Christmas sweater, or show us a picture of the puzzle that you might have done with your family or on your own. And then New Year's Day, January 1st, we're going to join together as well and have regular Sunday service on New Year's Day, and we're going to celebrate the new year with a morning together. And I think it's a good way to start the new year. Just
Why
being
not?
together. Yeah,
It's great.
And then that same evening, there's a youth night.
Oh, that's
Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm already trying to mentally prepare myself not to spend time with youth, because that's the easy part. It's the this could go all night long part. But we're going to start about 8 o'clock. Normally, we're going to start about the time youth group normally ends.
Yeah.
That should be
and
fun.
this is on Sunday night, not on Monday.
This is Sunday night. Yeah. So two things. One, often in the past we've done like a New Year's Eve event, and we thought, well, that's old and tired. Let's try something new. No, we thought having that it ends with breakfast usually. And we thought, well, it's Sunday, so that's kind of awkward. It's like, you'd come for the service and there'd be youth roaming around in their PJs, like cleaning up.
Or trying to stay awake. And
Right, exactly. And then they're all gonna, they're gonna fall asleep in the service. So we thought, it's still New Year's if we start it on the 1st and go to the 2nd, because there's not school that day. That's great. So we're going to do that and have just an evening and late night and breakfast together and hang out and have fun.
And so I hear they're supposed to bring sledding gear and all that kind of stuff.
Well,
Is that,
that's something because there's like enough snow to go around, and
Now there is.
likely not to disappear.
doesn't look like it's going to go away soon.
Late night sledding is often good times.
That doesn't mean it won't become slush by then. Though.
Yeah, that's true.
Right, or refreeze.
So
and
maybe
become
bring
ice.
some extra clothes and
Yeah, right. That's just part of the game. So it's going to be good times.
good.
Yep.
That's great.
And then we're going to move into the new year, and
Yes.
we invite you to continue joining with us. And if this is your first time hanging out with us in Coffee Talk, we invite you into the new year to join with us to be part of the family that just tries to just care for each other. And we're not a building, we're not a location, we're not an event. We are a gathering of God's people in this particular community, and there is so many others in our community as well too. And so, if you happen to just kind of stumble on this and join with us, we invite you to just be a part of our family and connect with us. So, yeah. With that, hopefully you have a wonderful Merry Christmas, and we will look forward to seeing you this Friday night, this Sunday morning on Christmas Day to celebrate together, and maybe you'll bring a Christmas sweater or two to join with us, which would be super fun. We look forward to it. Take care.